I'm making a video game. It is a simple, small, single-player, physics-based kart racer, but not in the Mario Kart way, as in a literal cart for shopping around a supermarket. And it's called, SuperMarketKart, and it does not look good. Let's talk game design. I'm about to say some very controversial things, so let me be as clear as I can first, just to cut down on the reasons you all have to get mad at me in the comments. We're talking about graphics, and I've used the word good, which is obviously subjective. In fact, it's so subjective, vague and broad that it's almost useless, unless you're looking for a provocative title for your devlog video, you rage-baiting fraud. But for the sake of context, let's assume that I mean this. Something built on Unreal Engine 5 or an equivalent where you can walk slowly forward for 10 minutes and everybody watching the Sony State of Play pretends that they really wanted another 24 FPS cinematic remake of a 1996 PlayStation game to justify owning a £700 games console with nothing else on it. The very generic, socially acceptable definition of good, which in all seriousness is probably best typified recently by footage from the new Forza Horizon, which does absolutely look, well, good. In a way that made both me and my wife go, wow, that looks good. So now you know about our baseline, with a very socially accepted definition of the word good. Why is that important? Because SuperMarketKart looks like this. This is not Forza Horizon. For one thing, it's all indoors, so it doesn't even have a horizon. What it does have, at least in our little prototype level, is some chickens. Let me explain. The actual level you're looking at right now won't end up in the final game in this form. It's just a single tiny looping track going around a few shelves so that I have a workable level to lock in physics, mechanics, UI, layout, game flow stuff, boring things like options, level select, saving, loading data, all of that. But because I'm me, and I love to wrap everything in context because I think it improves even the most basic of things, this prototype level has an in-game theme to it, because I like to lock in what's important as soon as I can. Hence, we have this ridiculous theme of a flash sale in our supermarket, selling nothing but the incredibly original and unique Kellogg's Boring Flakes. So because you're a smart, wonderful, genius person who is definitely smart enough to already be subscribed to me, you'll have noticed lots of things at once. They're obviously not finished because we're only on Devlog 2, and what kind of self-respecting solo indie game dev YouTuber would I be if I actually finished something in a reasonable time frame? But what they are is intentionally locked in aesthetics for the mood and vibe of the game going forward. They're also slightly scary giant chickens, but you know, flash sale. Speaking of giant, the first thing you've probably noticed is the scale of the level, its items and decor compared to you as a player is, if you look very closely, absolutely mental. It is not by any means at all in any way realistic whatsoever. And if this looks familiar to you, then please tell me where you live because I need to take a very exciting road trip. This is, believe it or not, all entirely intentional. This is obviously a racing game. Now, teachable moment, it's important in racing games to go quite fast. Those of you that have played racing games before, especially arcade ones, have likely seen stage decorations with text on them. You'll also know that when moving at certain speeds, like fast, it's hard to read things that aren't very big. You'll also have noticed even from just the one item I'm using to stock my supermarket, I'm doing a lot of hilarious, shut up, parody items to sell the general tone of whichever shop we're in at the time. The thing about parody items is you usually need to put text in them for the parody to work. So if we're combining text on some items that you're moving past very quickly, it's going to be pretty big text. This all began originally as a development problem because for a while I was scratching my head thinking, well, how do I make the text big enough to read when you're going that fast? And after an embarrassingly long amount of time, I had the genius brainwave to make it all bigger. This created an interesting cascading chain reaction that locked the aesthetic and tone of the whole game together instantly just from this one thing. And we're going to talk about the logic. If the best solution to this one problem is to play around with our definition of what's realistically feasible, like say, huge boxes of cornflakes, then reality is clearly out of the window entirely, isn't it? So, if reality's gone on extended leave for the foreseeable future, we might as well go all the way and put in some suitably gigantic kaiju roosters. Why not, right? Makes about as much sense as the massive boxes. This also completely accidentally solved another problem I was having. When the boxes were smaller, I had to put more of them in to fill up the shelves. Otherwise every level was going to look like a COVID-era stock shortage. But adding in that many models with dynamic 3D collision physics was starting to take its toll on performance. and I really want to lock this in at a constant 60 FPS on Steam Deck as its target platform. Now though, with comically oversized boxes, it only takes a few of them to fill up an entire shelving system, and the performance stays nice and consistent. Also, because I'm lazy, economical, fewer, bigger items takes a lot less effort to populate our tracks with things, so it's an absolute net positive to throw in some giant boxes. Recklessly discarding the rules of physical reality enables us to do something else that's going to be incredibly helpful for actually finishing the damn thing. Historically speaking, I am not good at art. I've gotten better over the years, but honestly, look at this stuff. We've got a two-tone tiled floor and ceiling, plain walls, some intersecting flat box bits making up shelves, stock displays and checkouts, and a single simple green chicken that took an embarrassingly long amount of time to make in Blender. So if we can discard reality, it stands to reason that we can also then discard realism. Oh, thank God. All we need to do if we're going in this direction is to make stuff that represents what we want. It doesn't need to be a one-to-one faithful rendition of a shopping cart, it just needs to be something that I can point to and say, hey, what do you think that is? And then not get that is a Motorola Razr V3, the coolest mobile phone ever made, as a response. Especially when, hot take, the coolest phone ever made is actually the Sony Ericsson sliding piano black Walkman phone that had a little kickstand on the back, but we're not ready for that conversation. This is why I began and titled this video about graphics not needing to be good. Note the air quotes. Because these graphics can't be good, because I made them and I have the artistic abilities of a particularly disadvantaged sentient cheese wheel. But also because of that definition we locked in of what good actually is. And instead we're teaching you that graphics really don't have to be good, they just have to be... Or, in this specific case, this is Katamari, one of my favourite game series of all time. What you'll notice immediately is that the graphical style is simple, clear, easily readable, and a very solid visual identity for a series that is 22 years old. Jesus Christ. But because of that, it's also timeless, because this style works whenever you go back to it. The thing about good graphics, note the air quotes, is they age. They're tied to the technical limitations of the hardware of the time and opening up cynical corporate cash grabs releasing the 17th remake for $75 because the lighting improved at a silky smooth cinematic 24 frames per second and a dynamic resolution of 360p with frame generation switched on. I realise, by the way, this is ironic when the version of Katamari I'm showing you is a remake, but this one doesn't count because it was the first time the series was released on PC. What's far more important about Katamari though is the way that scaling can, and in this specific context actually has to work. The best way I can describe it is like this. Everything makes sense until it doesn't. You start out tiny, in a lounge or whatever, rolling up little paper clips and random trash on the floor, getting up on a table and taking in little bits of stationery, and well, some of it is rotating and sometimes weirdly stacked, but that's okay. And you keep going and there's some little animals and some people and some traffic and sometimes just random little animals in the street, and that's fine and you can carry on. And you roll up some boats and there's a giant octopus and a Voltron robot and some other storm clouds and ships and continents, and you can't pinpoint the exact moment where everything just kind of went out the window, but it did, and that was fine. Time for another hot take, but I firmly believe this game would not work with good graphics. It would look weird, but not in the way that it already looks weird. It would look like one of those lazy little asset flip games where somebody's just stuck the entirety of the Unity asset store into a rage-bait 3D climbing game and got a Twitch streamer to scream at it so their focus-damaged brain rot viewers will pay $5 for the privilege to yell skill issue in the chat while they've got Roblox open on their phone. It is a perfect measure of consistent inconsistency, where everything makes sense until it doesn't. Because it's all on purpose and it's intentional, it's been aesthetically pleasing for decades. And even with just this one prototype level, that's where we are. We're all locked in with a very clear and cohesive aesthetic that's very much not good, but grants us a lot more freedom for what we want to do, which is weird in a good way. And for now, that is enough. I now have enough of a working basis to move forward with the rest of the game, lock in all the boring basics underneath, and keep going to a point where I can do more than chickens. I don't want to oversell or give you unrealistic expectations, but if we're very lucky, I might move on to a bakery aisle and maybe make some bread. Shocking, I know. And if you want to see that, then like this video if you liked this video and subscribe for more videos like the video you liked, and I will see you the next time I'm thinking, hey, let's talk game design.